I'm Yasmin Jandali, Managing Broker of Starwood Business Group here in Atlanta, Georgia.
And I'm Emma Nichols, and I work here with Yasmin at Starwood Business Group. And today we're going to talk about cash flow analysis and business valuations and our process specifically.
That's right. So in other words, we're talking money.
Money.
That's right. So when you decide that you are ready to sell your business, and if you have decided on a professional broker who's going to represent you in the sale of your company, like us, exactly, then the next step is to get a business valuation. And one of the things that sets us apart from some of our colleagues is that we offer a no cost, no obligation business valuation to prospective clients. So if you're thinking about selling your business, we will offer that as part of our service at no cost to you, because for us it's really important that we're on that same page. We don't want to waste anybody's time, and we don't want to overprice, because then you're never going to get any offers, and we certainly don't want to underprice and leave money on the table for you, the business owner. So we do the business valuation. Again, no cost, no obligation, and we feel it's a very important service that we provide, and we're proud to do it. So in order to get started with the valuation, there's a couple of things that we need. That's right. So we need at least 3 years of historical financial information, which means what? Which means tax returns, which means P&Ls, which means corroborating sales reports as well. Those are always really helpful to have. And that's usually enough to get us started. And once we have all the information that we need, it takes us about a week or so to complete the valuation. And we do a pretty thorough review and analysis of those tax returns. And what we're looking for, the main driver, the value of your company, is going to be what's called SDC, right? Or SDE, sometimes it's referred to. And that stands for Seller's Discretionary Cash Flow, or Seller's Discretionary Earnings. And that number is really important, because that number does 3 things for a new owner of a company. The first thing is they need to be able to pay themselves a salary, right? So as we're going through and working the analysis, we plug in a number for replacing you as the owner, however much is a reasonable salary that somebody would want to pay themselves in that industry. The other thing is, if the new owner borrows money to buy the business, whether it's from a bank loan or equity or even seller financing, the business needs to service its own debt. So nobody's going to buy a business and then have to shell out money every month out of their own pocket to pay the bills. That doesn't make much sense. So that's important. The third thing is, nobody buys a business to keep it status quo. Everybody has visions and ideas of how they want to make it bigger, better, more profitable. So that all takes money as well. So the third piece of that cash flow is money that's going to be reinvested back into the business to help grow that company and take it up to that next level. So when we're calculating for cash flow, we're looking at a couple of different components of the tax returns, right? So the first part is your pre-tax profit. Sometimes we start out with a loss, and it happens, and that's part of the process too, and we do visit that, and we see that quite often. And for prospective buyers out there, that's not necessarily huge alarm bells or cause for concern. We'll talk about that later in a future podcast when it comes to the buying process and what buyers should look for. But sometimes we start out with a loss. Ideally, we start out with a pre-tax profit. That's right.
That's the goal.
That's the goal. And then we also take into consideration non-cash expenses like interest, depreciation, amortization. And we have things like owner benefits, such as if the company is paying for your health insurance or your personal vehicle or things like that that are not necessary to the operation of the company. Of course, those expenses, we don't just add back willy-nilly, right? They have to be provable and justifiable, and we have to be able to show on paper where they come from. And the fact that they're not business related. But all those factors come together and we calculate for SDC in that manner. And then we have a couple of other valuation methods that we use to come up with suggested values for the business. Yeah. So you went through this. I mean,
Yes.
if you've watched any of our previous episodes, you'll have known by now that Emma sold her business, or rather not sold, but partnered with somebody.
Yes.
And so you went through this process. Maybe it was a little bit different for you.
I did, and it was, I can tell you the best thing that I did over a few years before I sold the business was to have everything in QuickBooks, and it was a matter of just generating reports. So it made it very easy. And also, keeping your books squeaky clean and not using your business debit card to buy groceries and that kind of thing is very helpful. So you want to obviously run it like a business, and that really helps when it comes time to sell and do the valuation. And but I think it's to your credit, Yasmin, or our credit. It's 90. What we usually sell for 96 to 80.
Well, so reverse that, yeah.
Sorry.
So that's all right. Most of our companies, most of our business listings actually sell for an average, right, of about 86 to 92% of the asking price, and that's because we do a really good, thorough job up front of analyzing those financials and coming up with an opinion of value that we feel is fair and justifiable. Because really, at the end of the day, if you have a really good, strong, qualified buyer, but they don't feel that your asking price is fair or that they can justify it with the financials, you're never going to get any offers. And that's our goal at the end. At the end of it is to get a good, strong offer from a quality buyer and then start working on the transition phase.
Exactly. And as a business owner, it's your baby, right?
That's right.
Business owners will usually think their business is worth a lot more than it actually is.
Sure.
Which is the way that goes. And so you really do need a broker that's going to use the numbers that you have to come up with a realistic valuation. And not what you want to make off of it, but what it actually is worth and will bring. And that way, you're not putting it on the market for some exorbitant sum where you won't attract any buyers.
Or underpricing it and leaving money on the table for you, right? Because it goes both ways. If you're a business owner, you are an expert in your field, whatever it is that you happen to do. You're not necessarily an expert in business valuation. Nobody expects you to be. And that's why you reach out to professionals like us so that we can give you an idea of what your business is worth. And one of the things about our process is that, again, there really is no obligation. If you decide, and we decide together, that it's not the right time and it's not the right price, and that's okay. We'll sit down and work out a plan to help you get that number where you want it to be, keeping in mind, of course, that things change, economies change, markets change, so there's no guarantee really ever of anything in the future. All we know is what's going on right now, but there's no obligation. And I've had clients that I've worked with for 3 or 4 or more years that we've done an updated valuations for them on a biannual or annual basis to help them understand where their business is going and how it's growing in terms of the value, so that when the time came and they were ready to sell, we were ready to go.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And are we able to talk about the components that go into our evaluation, or is that something that we...
Sure, we can talk about that a little bit. Of course, it's quite detailed and extensive, so we don't have too much time to go into all the details today, but we do an analysis based on 3 different components. The first one is we do a cash flow analysis like we talked about a couple of minutes ago, with analyzing and coming up with that SDC or SDE number, that cash flow figure. The second piece of it is we look at the business through the eyes of a prospective lender, and we say, all right, if we're a bank and these are the typical lending requirements and criteria of a bank, how much would a lender potentially be willing to lend for someone to borrow and buy this business? And that's a really good thing to keep in mind, because one of the first things that we do when we have a potential new client is reach out to our colleagues in the lending industry and say, hey, we've got this great business. Can you help us get it pre-qualified for an SBA loan? And we can talk about that in the future, but that's definitely a good thing to try and do, because it opens up the pool of qualified buyers tremendously. And it makes people feel much more comfortable and at ease with the business if you have a pre-qualification in place. The next next thing that we do is we look at what's going on in the marketplace, in the industry. Similar businesses that have recently sold, what are buyers willing to pay for businesses like this one? What are they selling for? What's the listing versus selling price? So all of those market conditions we take into consideration and use that as a third method of analysis. And then we run our magic and come up with one overall suggested value of for the company, and there you go.
Yeah, so it's very detailed, and I don't think that every broker place does it that way, right?
Not to my knowledge.
Everybody else does.
No, but
we don't think they all do that.
Well,
so
you can speak a little bit to your experience.
Yeah.
I don't think you went through that process.
Didn't go through
Yeah,
that
I
process.
think you went through more of what's called a tabletop valuation.
Yeah.
And maybe the broker allowed you to kind of dictate
A
what.
little bit.
Yeah.
It was heavily influenced by what I actually wanted to make from the sale.
Yeah, which
isn't
is
necessarily
not
right.
necessarily the best way to do it.
So-
You know, again, because you are an expert in your industry, but you're not an expert necessarily in what your business is worth.
Not at all.
Right.
Yeah.
And we, as the professionals, it's our job to guide and educate our clients so that we can help them get the best price and get it sold to the best person as quickly as possible.
Yeah, so if we have anybody out there that's watching this that wants even just a valuation and is
right.
thinking about selling, that's something that comes with.
Absolutely, it's part of
paying.
our service.
You can pay thousands of dollars to have an actual, full-fledged forensic business evaluation, right? So,
Yeah, that's right. And
So
and
that's a lot of
that's a really good point, because there's a difference between a business valuation and a business appraisal, right?
Right, that's what the
So
word is,
an
right.
appraisal is a very, very in-depth, used for a specific purpose, and those can run literally thousands, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars, depending on the business and the size of the company. But for folks that are considering the sale of their company, we do offer that as part of our service at no cost or obligation. And we also do provide valuations for other reasons too. If somebody needs a valuation for tax purposes or other business purposes, we do provide those, and the rates do vary depending on, again, the size of the company and how much is involved. But we've been doing this for 10 plus years. We've got great numbers, and we're always really excited to help business owners achieve that potential of earning, right? Of getting paid what they've earned over the years, what they've built over the years of hard work that they've invested in their company.
Yeah, so if somebody wants to reach out, what's the number?
770-814-4466.
Yasmin.
Emma, always available at starwoodbusinessgroup.com. Really looking forward to hearing from you.